She's Rangika Ekanayaka, attached to IFS. She's a senior manager in software engineering. She's a degree holder from the California University. And today our topic is Journey into UX Design. So Rangika, we are really excited to hear from you. Please take us on the journey. Over to you.
Thank you, Didula. So I'll start my video here. So can you see my face now?
Yes, we can see you.
Okay. So let me share the screen here. Okay. Can you see my screen as well now?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, thank you for confirming. So, hello all. Let's start our journey into UX. So, after I've been invited to do this session for today, I was thinking for several days that how I'm going to start this session. And I managed to read this article about a young lady and her recent experience with WhatsApp application. So in this article, she explains that one day she wanted to check whether her husband is on the way from office because she wanted to ask him to bring some groceries for her. So she simply took the phone and type a message asking whether he is on the way and send the message. And once she pressed the send button only, she realizes that instead of sending this to her husband, mistakenly, she has sent the message to her manager, whom has more or less a similar kind of name as her husband. So she got panicked, and as for the first instinct, she tried to delete the message. So in WhatsApp, we have this feature, delete for everyone. So she tried to delete the message by using that. Once the action is completed, her message indicates this text specifying that you deleted this message. So she was really happy that she managed to clear out the mess that she created. So she sent this message again to her husband, carefully checking the recipient, and then she carried on with her work. But after a few minutes, she got a message from her manager asking, "Have you tried to contact me?" So she was really confused because she was confident that she had deleted this message. So she asked from her manager, "Why are you asking me like that?" So then he has sent this screenshot of the WhatsApp screen. So what WhatsApp do is, instead of deleting this message itself, they replace the message of the recipient screen by this text specifying that this message was deleted. So she says that she had to explain her manager what has happened again, and she thinks that it would be even better she had do that at the first place rather than trying to delete the message. So at last she specifies that even though WhatsApp is a great tool, when it's come to this particular feature, she is not happy about her experience with that. So now you might be wondering, what this story has to do with today's session. This is what we are going to discuss within this 1 hour. Not about this young lady and her experience over WhatsApp, rather in general, how a person feels about the use of a product, system or service. In other words, user experience or UX. Before we continue with our journey, I would like to give a bit of introduction to myself. So you already know my name. I'm Rangika Ikanayaka. So I started my career in 2006 as a software engineer at IFS, and currently I'm holding the position as a senior manager software engineering. But within this 14 years experience with IFS, I managed to perform different type of roles like software engineer, software designer, UX coach, likewise. So how I entered into this UX world? At one time, I managed to perform a user research for a functionality which related to a development. While I'm at this task, I got really passionate with this concept of UX. So I started to read and learn about it. Once I started to read and learn about it, I became even more passionate about this concept. Then with my role of UX coach, I managed to apply these methods and concepts of UX which I learned into our current processes and do experiments around it. And with that, I managed to collect a lot of experience around this. So that's how I started my journey into UX. Okay, so you now know me and you saw me. Then for the rest of the presentation, I will turn off my video since there can be, there is a chance to have network disruption. So give me a 1 minute here. Okay, I hope you can still hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So let's continue with our session. What is UX? With my previous example, I try to provide you a brief explanation about UX. But let me elaborate it once again. When it's come to user experience, we have a person with a purpose. In our previous example, it is this young lady who had the purpose of contacting her husband. And to achieve this purpose, people use either product, system, or service. In our previous example, this young lady used WhatsApp as the medium to contact her husband. Then, how a user feel about the use and the efficiency of this product, system, or service with related to achieving this person's purpose is we called user experience of this product, system, or service. Nowadays, this word user experience most commonly is being used in digital industry. But this is not something that is specific for software industry. Rather, this is an attribute that is there with all the product, system, or service which we use in our day-to-day life. When we use a spoon to eat a bowl of cereal, how we feel about the use of spoon with related to achieving our purpose of eating the bowl of cereal is contributing to the user experience of this spoon. and when it's come to withdrawing some money from ATM machine, how we feel about the use of the ATM machine with related to achieving our purpose of withdrawing money is contributing to the user experience of this ATM machine. So like that, every product, system or service which is being used in our everyday life is subjected to this attribute of user experience. Don Norman, an American the person who brought this concept of user experience into the center stage. Important why we need to focus on user experience. It is not to fall ourselves as designers into this kind of situations. So here you could see there is this well-designed path which has been implemented by spending a lot of time and money. But since they have designed it without trying to find out what is expected from the user out of this design, or what is the user experience that they would like to achieve out of this design, makes this design either fail fully or partially. It says every design we design, if we do that without looking at the user experience of the user, or by not looking at what is user expected out of that design, is tend to fail either fully or partially. Not only these designs tend to fail, but also the consequence of it can be sometimes serious and costly as well. In 1979, one of the nuclear plants has been partially melted due to an simple UX error. So this is the control room of that nuclear plant. In this control panel, there was a certain set of lights which indicates the status of a set of valves. If a certain light is on, that indicates a valve is open, and if it is closed, that indicates this valve is closed. If it is turned on, that indicates the turn off, that indicates the valve is closed. At least that's how these engineers thought so. So in this particular day, they sent the signal to close these valves, and all these lights went off, indicating that these valves are properly closed. But at the point, these engineers found out that one of the valves has not been closed properly due to a technical error. Half of the uranium has been already melted. And also due to the radiation factor, they had to evacuate 140,000 people around the area to reduce the effect. So during the investigations, they have found out this control panel is designed in a way that once the system sent the signal to close the valve, light went off without checking whether this valve is properly closed or not. So now you can see, due to this simple UX error, these engineers did not manage to achieve the purpose they expected out of this control panel. Also, it causes consequences which are serious and costly as well. So that is why we have to look at user experience before we start a design, while we designing, and after we done the design as well. Okay, is user interface equal to user experience? This is the mostly misunderstood concept sometimes till today, because since we interact with the user interface most of the time, we feel that user interface itself is the user experience, but it is not. Even though user interface is a subset of user experience, user interface itself is not the user experience. Let me take an example. This is the user interface of eBay website. We can say it is more or less well-designed user interface. But why someone go into eBay? It is either to buy something or sell something. Let's say there is this person who wants to buy a toy car for his son, and he uses eBay as the product. So he go into eBay and search for remote cars and do some filtering around it, and trying to pick one or two which he preferred, then going to find out more details about that toy cars. Then after selecting one, he goes to purchase it. But at this time, he found out that this product is not being delivered to Sri Lanka. So by looking at the overall experience of this person, he wants to buy a toy car for his son. He uses eBay as the product to achieve that purpose, but he did not manage to achieve it since it is not being delivered to Sri Lanka. So now you can see, even though eBay has a well-designed user interface, when it's come to the user experience of it for this person, it is quite low because he did not manage to achieve the purpose he required to achieve out of it. So even though user interface contributes a lot for user experience to achieve the proper level of user experience, user interface itself is not the user experience. Okay, let's go into UX design. What is UX design? Let's say that our company has given us a task to design a coffee mug. So now coffee mugs are already existing in the market. So we could have a look at the existing some of designs, and we can come up with something like this. Or before directly diving into design a coffee mug, we could research about the users of the coffee mug. Obviously, the users of the coffee mugs are the people who drink coffee. Then with our research, we can try to identify what are the problems they face with this ordinary coffee mug. And by trying to achieve that, we might be able to find out that most of the coffee drinkers love to drink coffee while it is hot. But one of the problems that they face is once they pour hot coffee into coffee mug itself getting hot. And due to that, they are struggling to hold it properly. And because of that, there is a chance to slip the mug and spill this hot coffee on their body as well. So this is a problem that they face with this existing design of coffee mug. So rather than trying to provide a simple design, we could try to provide a solution for this problem with our design of the coffee mug. So we could design something like this. So in this coffee mug, there is 2 layers. And within these 2 layers, there is a vacuum. Because of that, no matter how hot the coffee inside is, still the users can firmly hold their mugs without getting their hands burn. So UX design is a process which lead the designers to research the users and identify their problems of existing process, and also to after that to come up with a design which provide more user experience to the user and also which has higher success rate as well. But how can we assure that whether we have achieved the level of user experience with our design? So how can we measure UX? That we can achieve with these three attributes: usefulness, usability, desirability. It says if a certain if a certain product has higher level of usefulness, usability, and desirability, this product has a greater level of user experience. Let's compare our previous two designs of coffee mugs with these three attributes. So, what is usefulness? Usefulness means whether this person can achieve the required purpose out of it. So, what coffee drinkers' purpose they want to achieve with the mug is to hold the coffee. That can be achieved with both of these designs. So, what is usability? Usability is how easily these users can achieve that purpose. So when it's come to that, the second design, the improved design, scores than the ordinary coffee mug because user can hold the mug easily without getting their hands burned with the second design. So what is desirability? Desirability is how much user prefer this experience over the others. Let's say that you are walking into a shop and on a shelf you see these two coffee mugs. So if you want to buy a mug, what would you prefer to buy? Personally, I would prefer to buy the second one because of this elegant design. So like that, when we come up with a product, we could do a user test around it to find out about the level of these three attributes achieved by this product to assure whether this product has achieved the level of user experience that we required out of it. Okay, let's try to understand the individual phases of the UX design. Before that, can someone of you confirm whether you can see my screen properly still and you can hear me properly as well?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, then let's continue with our session. So what are the phases of UX design? If you Google for the UX design process, you might end up with a screen like this. So there are lots of formats of UX design process which has been developed to achieve a certain level of context. But if you look at each of these UX design processes, you would see there are 5 common phases with each of these formats. That is, research user, identify problem, ideate for solution, prototype, and testing. Let's have a detailed look at each of these phases. For that, let's take an example scenario. So nowadays, due to the previous lockdown situation, most of the schools in Sri Lanka has started this distance learning. But before this lockdown situation, in Sri Lanka, distance learning was not a norm. And Because of that, most of the schools do not have a proper platform in place to carry out this distance learning effectively and easily. So now we have this business opportunity. We can try to build an online application to provide a good platform to carry out the distance learning, and we can try to market and sell it to the schools. So without just trying to design itself, let's see whether we can use this UX design process to come up with a product with a better level of user experience. So the first phase of UX design process is research user. And out of that, first step is identify user types. So if we look at our situation, our online application, when it's come to user types, there would be two main user types, that is teacher and students. In an ideal situation, we should research both of these user types. But for the sake of explaining it easily, I will just use the user type of teacher. So the second step is to pick a sample for this user type. So in the beginning, it would be enough to have kind of like 3 to 5 users as the sample. Then we need to identify what are the information that we need to gather from them. So when it's come to teachers, that there can be the information like their level of computer literacy, how they prepare these study materials, how they distribute it, and how frequently they carry out their process. Likewise, once we have identified what are the information that we would like to collect from them, we can select a research method. So when it's come to user researching, the most common user research methods are user interview, survey, and observe. User interview is face-to-face discussion that we have with the user for the purpose of trying to find answers for the questions that we have gathered to collect the identified information. And survey is, we put all these questions into a document and we distribute that to the user by expecting written answers from our users. And observing is, we go into the context where the actual process is happening, and we observe the user while they are at the task. So let's say that given this pandemic situation, we wouldn't be able to do the observing because due to this social distancing protocol. But of course, we could use the user interview and survey. When it's come to user interview, we could use video conferencing and achieve our purpose. So let's say by performing user interview and survey, we have collected required information from our sample set of users. Then the next phase is identify the problem of the existing process. To achieve this purpose of identifying problems, in this phase we could use different types of tools, but most commonly we are using two tools. The first one is persona. Persona is a fictional user that we create to represent the user type, and we develop it based on the information that we collect in our researching phase. By having the persona in place, it makes easier for us to understand their behaviors, their goals, their needs and expectations. And By having these personas in place, it makes us easier to understand the situation through the eyes of user. So here you can see this is an example persona that I have created to represent a teacher who teaches to the secondary level class. So you could see that we can look at, find out their behaviors and goals and their frustrations and how comfortable with, how much they're comfortable with the technology. Likewise, based on your user type, you can decide how much persona, how much personas you would like to create. Let's say that when we compare in the teacher who teaches to the primary level classes and the teacher who teaches to the secondary level classes, the needs and goals of a teacher who teaches to the primary level class are different from others. So we can create a separate persona to represent the teacher who teaches into the primary level classes. So likewise, we can decide the number of personas that we would like to develop to get a better understanding of our user type. So on top of this, another format that we use, another document that we create is user journey map. User journey map is a visualization tool which easily visualize the current process of the user. So here you could see that this elaborate the process, and also it visualize the individual phases of it and the problems they face in each of these phases, their emotional experiences, and also we could with this format, it provides the possibility for us to come up with ideas what we could include into our solution to receive a better user experience for this user. So you could see that when creating and sharing lessons, these teachers go through 5 phases: creating document, storing document, and sharing documents. When it's come to sharing document, you could see that most of them uses WhatsApp group as the sharing mechanism. But WhatsApp is not a tool that developed to achieve this kind of purpose. Because of that, they face certain set of problems that some of them are that it is not easy to keep track of what are the lessons that they have been previously shared. And also, since there are lots of chats happening inside these WhatsApp groups, some students might tend to miss the lessons that has been shared. And also, there is a chance to share the incorrect document as well. So when it's come to this sharing document phase, you could see that their emotional experience also quite low. And also, by looking at all of these, we can get some ideas how to improve our solution. So we can see that if we can provide a platform to easily track the previously shared documents, it would provide more user experience for these users. And also, if we can provide a way to send the notification for the students once this teacher has uploaded this document, it would provide more added value to the solution. So you could see that by having these documents in place, we could easily understand our user, their process, and the existing problems that they face. And also we can come up with some ideas on how to improve our user experience of this application as well. So once we have identified the problem, then we go into the ideation phase. So it says, if you have less than 10 members in our team, it would be better if you can participate all the members into this phase. But if you have a much more bigger team, let's say that your team is composition of set of software engineers, set of software designers, set of quality assurance, and set of UX designers, at least one member from each role required to participate into this phase. That means at least one software engineer, one software designer, one UX designer, and one quality assurer. After having the team in place, they gather, and first thing they do is to recap the business goal and the user need. They walk through the business goal, the goal that has been given by the company, and they try to understand the user and their process by looking at the information that we have collected in the previous phase. And also by that, they try to identify the problems that these users face within their process. After clarifying all these information, next step is to brainstorm for a solution. So in this phase, all the members given some time to come up with the solution, and we ask them to write that down. And after that, all the members gather and discuss the solutions that has been suggested by every member. In this stage, we critically analyze these solutions, like whether these solution achieve the user's expectations, whether it achieve the business goal, whether it is technically feasible. Like, we critically analyze these suggestions that is been there, and after that we pick best possible solutions, one or more. Once we have selected this solution, next thing we do is we sketch the design. For this purpose, we could use just pen and paper, because it is easier to throw away as well. So we could design the solutions that we selected as the best possible solutions and try to come up with sketches for the solution. Once we have done that, next thing we do is prototyping the solution. Why we need to prototype the solution? That is to gather early feedback from the user. Why we need to gather early feedback? You might be wondering that since we already have a best possible solution and we have came up with the sketches, why don't we directly why don't we directly do the detailed designing and implement it and publish it? Let's say that we have directly implemented and published it. Once we published it, we might be found out that this is not the solution that is expected by the user. But at that time, we have spent a lot of money and time for this solution. Then all these going to be faced. So to avoid that situation, it is always recommended to gather early feedback, early and frequent feedback from the users. So to develop this prototype, what we do is wireframe the solution. So in this stage, we do not discuss about the detailed designing. We do not discuss about what color the button would be, what font that we are going to use for this site, and what would be the images. Those things we are not going to discuss in here. We just do simple wireframing of the solution, and for that, we can use existing wireframing tools as well. So if we look at our example, this is how I have wireframed the sketch that I have came up in the previous phase. So this has been developed using the tool called Balsamiq, and you could see that this wireframe is more than enough to collect early feedback from user. Not only these wireframing solutions provide the possibility to design the screens, but also it provides the possibility to demonstrate the interactions as well. Let's say that by clicking on this upload lesson button, we plan to redirect to another screen. So we can develop that screen and we can connect that to this upload lesson button, and we can demonstrate the interaction like this. So you could see that this wireframing tools helps us to develop the wireframe and show the interaction of the solution as well. So once we have this prototype, next thing we do is testing. So we demonstrate our prototype to the sample users and we gather feedback from them. So some of the guidelines that is recommended for this phase is to encourage users to talk through their experience. And also it is recommended not to disturb their thought process. But of course you can ask follow-up questions, but try to give them time to think. And also it is always encouraging the testers who participate into this phase to observe the user, because sometimes they might not explaining everything, they might not give the feedback for everything, but observing them give us a chance to understand where they are struggling with, what are the information that is hard to understand. So those things we can easily find out by observing the user. So let's say that we have gone through this phase and we have achieved a result. By looking at the result, we can decide whether are we in a position that to go to the detailed designing, or do we need to go back to identify another solution, or do we need to go back to clarify problems again. So we can decide the next step based on the result that we gather in the testing phase. So after explaining these phases, you might feel that these phases run in sequential. But sorry to disappoint you, these phases do not run in sequentially. These are recursive processes. Most of the time, these phases run recursively. Let's say that in testing phase, we found out that this is not the solution that is expected by the user. We can go back into Ideate for solution. Say in the prototyping phase, we found out that we have not identified the problems correctly. So we can go back into identify the problem phase and try to clarify the problem even more. And also, sometimes these phases run in parallel as well. So it sometimes that can happen, like in the ideation phase itself, they might start to develop the prototype as well. So no matter this process run sequentially, recursively, or parallelly, whatever way, UX design process leads designer to come up with the product which achieves better level of user experience, and also which has higher level of success factor as well. Okay, now you might think that UX design process ends after we launch the product. No, it is not. It needs to be a continuous process. That's how we can maintain the expected level of user experience throughout the life cycle of this product and or system that we develop. So we need to continuously run this process throughout the life cycle of the product that we design. Okay. Now at this point, we have gone through what is UX, and we try to understand why it is important, and what is UX design process. and how to measure the user experience. So what is next? When it's come to UX concepts and methods, I could make it equal to a ocean. So what I have presented today, it's kind of like a cup out of it. And when I started my career in 2006, there was not that much job roles which were dedicated for UX area. But now, if we try to look at the existing job positions, you could see there are lots of job roles which has invented around this UX area. So if any one of you would like to go in this career path, or if any one of you would like to master this as a skill, so I could suggest for those of who like to do that, 4 steps. The first one is learn the fundamentals. So you could use the existing online courses, and also for that you could use existing UX books as well. When it's come to online courses, I could suggest you Interaction Design Foundation, uxbeginners.com, and Career Foundry. Especially Interaction Design Foundation has a good set of courses which has been categorized into beginner level, intermediate level, and advanced level. And it is same for the uxbeginner.com and Career Foundry as well. They also have a set of good courses with them. And when it's come to books, you could start by reading these 2 books. These are kind of like all-time favorites in the subject of user experience. One written by Don Norman and one written by Steve Krug. So you could start with these 2 books. And the second tip I can suggest is to research about UX. Be up to date on the current trends and practices. So you could, as the starting step, one way you could do that is to in tune with the latest information. So I could suggest these 2 YouTube channels, Awards and High Resolution, in which they publish interviews they have performed with industry leaders in UX area, and also speeches that has been delivered by UX leaders in conferences. So you could start looking at this. And also, one way to be in tune latest information is to read recent articles. For that, you could start with Interaction Design Foundation, because they kind of publish good articles weekly and sometimes daily as well. So you could start by following them as another step. And another way to research about UX is to analyze the newly released products, systems, or services. Not only just to analyze them, but to analyze it with the perspective of looking at their user experience. So by looking that, you could intune the skills you need as a UX designer, and also you could find out how the UX concept has been applied in real life. And another step is to sharpen the knowledge of tools. When it's come to UX design, it is always we use tools for wireframing and designing. So you could start to get some knowledge around some of these tools, and you could easily do that by look at tutorials that has been published in YouTube, because there are a lot of good tutorials around these tools in YouTube. And the 4th step, I see this is the most important step, that is to join the UX community. Network with existing UX designers, researchers, and UI designers around the world. That's how we can learn the new concepts that is being appearing internationally. So for that, you could use social media tools. So when it's come to Instagram, you could start by following these three people, UX Goodies, Morigenda, and Fisign. And they kind of publish post like daily. But they have a lot of good contents and tips. And also these can read through without spending like not that much of minutes, like 1 and 2 minutes, you could get a good set of tips. And another way, in LinkedIn, you could start by following these people: Lorenzo, Austin Knight, Steve, and also Nielsen Norman Group, which has been founded by Don Norman. So these people and this group also publish a lot of good articles in with related to the subject of UX and newly released designs and new concepts, like a lot of good articles. And another way, you could follow these groups as well: UX Professionals, Interaction Design Foundation, User Experience, User Experience Professionals Network, and UX Strategy. So these are also good. These are also groups which publish good articles with related to UX. So these are the 4 steps that I could suggest you for anyone who would like to master their skills in UX design. But not only that, but also I also would like to help anyone who would like to go ahead in this career, who would like to master their skill, easily reach to me through LinkedIn and this email, journeytoux@gmail.com. Anyone who have questions around this UX concepts or about finding out more about these tools or anything, you can reach to me with these 2 methods. So now we have slowly come to the end of today's session, and with our session we have gone through try to understand what is UX, why it is important, and what is UX design process, how to measure it, and some steps to master this UX design skill. So I would like to end my session today with a great quote which said by Steve Jobs, who is a person believes this user experience throughout his lifetime. He says, you got to start with the customer experience and work back toward the technology, not the other way around. And that's what we believe in IFS as well. Thank you. Hello, are you still there?
Thank you, Rangika, for the great session.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rangika. That was a great session.
Okay.
Very inspiring. And you also helped in different steps and different methods, how if anyone is interested, how to really get into the journey and learn more and get into a career in user experience design. So we are now open for questions from the audience. If you all have any questions, please ask. Rangika is available to answer.
Yes.
You all can type in any question as well in the chat box. Okay, we have I think Rangika, you have made everything very clear to everyone. They have said it was a very clear and great session.
Okay, nice to hear that.
How about Coursera for learning UI UX? Danushka is asking.
Yes, Danushka, it there is some good courses, but I haven't tried to dig detail into this. But if you could send me send me a mail to my email, I could find out and send that to you. I hope that is fine. Yes, sure, I can show it. So online courses. This Interaction Design Foundation, uxbeginner.com, and Career Foundry. My first preference would be Interaction Design Foundation because they kind of have a good level of courses in a variety of topics. Any other questions? I can't see the chat. Vidula, have anyone else asked any questions?
Give me a second. Yes, there is few other questions. Can you tell me the names of the books that you mentioned before?
Yeah, these are The Design of Everyday Things, Don Norman, and Don't Make Me Think, Steve Krug.
Okay.
Yeah.
And another person is asking, is it worth to learn HCI in UI UX field?
Yes, of course. It is really worth to study that as well. It is always, when it's come to HCI, it itself says the human-computer interaction. So it is really worth to have a look at that as well.
Okay. What are the basic talents, qualifications which are required to be a UX designer?
When it's come to UX designer, I would say you need to be comfortable with working different types of people. That is the first thing, because we have to work with user research, and we have to interview people, and we have to involving in this ideation phase, and so a lot of all the things are happening with different types of people. So first thing, you have to be comfortable with working with different types of people. And second thing, you would have the passion to identify the behaviors of people. That's what we're trying to achieve with the user research and identifying problem. All those are evolving around the behaviors of users and human. So you need to have the passion to that as well. And when it's come to actually UX area, that we have UX designer and the UI designer. So you are if you are like to work with designing, but if you are not that much into work with the people or do the user interviews at well, but if you are really creative, you could start by looking at UI designer. So that might be suitable. But when it's come to UX design, main two things would be to ability to be comfortable with work different types of people and have the passion to understand the user behaviors. Any other questions? There is one.
Yeah. There is another question. Is it important to be a software engineer prior to become a UX designer?
Actually, when it's come to that, it all depends on what you would like to do actually. That is how I put it. Because we can't compare whether this is good, whether UX designer is better than software engineer or software engineer better than UX designer. We can't compare it because all these roles are required to develop a better level of software anyway. So it all depends on what you would prefer to work with, whether you are much more into coding or whether you are much more into identify the person's behavior. Likewise, it all depends on how you feel about where to grow in your career and your passion.
Okay, those are the questions we have got. And everyone, we will be uploading this session to the Future Careers Bridge YouTube channel, and we will send the link to you on email. So if you have missed anything, you can refer to it back looking at the YouTube channel, looking at the video. And Rangika, any other tips you would like to give? Any other messages you would like to pass on?
Actually, I think I have passed all the tips that I have learned in my career now. Only
That's
thing I
great.
could say is that follow your passions. Passion. That's how we can be happy as well with our career.
Great. That is great advice. Yes. And thank you everyone for joining. If you all have any questions, please type in the chat box or unmute your mic and ask. Otherwise, we can wind up the session now. Looks like that is all we have in terms of questions. Yes. We can end the session now, Rangika.
Okay. Thank you,
Then thank you very much once again for joining with us today and sharing these valuable thoughts and ideas and the information on how to become a UX engineer and about how beautiful that is as a career for a person who really likes that area. So thank you everyone for joining, and thank you again, Rangika. This has been a great
No problem.
experience. Okay.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you everyone for joining with us today. Please keep in touch with us. We will be bringing y'all more and more webinars like this, and we will see you in our next webinar in the next month. We have already made plans to make this a monthly webinar where we can bring your knowledge into software industry and learning IT. So we will keep you all posted, and thank you once again. Good night.